Aloha and welcome to A Word with Ward. I'm Representative Gene Ward and we're broadcasting from the state capitol in downtown Honolulu. Today we have the pleasure of having one of the capital's own, Representative Marcus Oshiro from Waiawa. Marcus, welcome.
Thank you, Gene. Good to be here.
You did such a great job at the Beer Summit. Some of you know I have a Beer Summit the first Thursday of every month, and we have expert speakers. 2 months or 3 months ago, we had Representative Oshiro who talked about everything you ever wanted to know about the new marijuana dispensaries. About 20 people attended, and we thought, you know, there's a lot of mystery still going on, Marcus, regarding what's in that bill, what's going on in other states, and what are some of the things that people can expect in Hawaii. Before we get into those three broad categories with some specific questions that have been prepared, let people know who Marcus Oshiro is. People in Waiawa know, but what in other areas, particularly in Hawaii Kai? What do you want people in Hawaii Kai to remember you?
Well, I'm a friend of Gene Ward's, and that's why I'm here today. We kind of have different political persuasions, but on certain issues we do find agreement. And this is one of them on House Bill 321, the Medical Marijuana Dispensaries Bill. Now Act 241.
Oh, Act 241.
Act 241, signed by the governor sometime in July. Anyway, I'm from Waiawa. I've been the representative for about 20 years now.
20 years?
Yeah, 20 years. I've had the privilege of serving the community of Waiawa, Whitmore Village, and Launani Valley.
And you came out of law school?
I came out of law school, Willamette University College of Law in Oregon. I spent a couple of years as a city prosecutor under Keith Kaneshiro. And then I went to work for the Legal Aid Society of Hawaii as a consumer lawyer for a couple of years. And then I ran for public office in 1994. It wasn't planned. It was somewhat fortuitous, but it's been my pleasure to be doing this.
Now, some may not know that there's an Oshiro legacy that you carry. Do you want to say anything about that in the sense that you filled something that your father had been doing?
Well, my father served for about 10 years in the state legislature. He was one of the original members of the first state legislature post-statehood, 1959.
Back when the Republicans handed it over to the Democrats. No, that was 54, actually.
No, yeah.
So he was sort of the second wave.
Yeah, he was
not the first wave.
He was second wave after Governor Ariyoshi and Senator Inouye. He came in statehood, and his interest was again to serve in the legislature in a newly created state legislature, and he did that for about 10 years. He never expected me to join him. In fact, I was kind of countercultural. Growing up.
Your long hair, or?
Oh yeah, longer hair. I was a little bit different than I am today, but anyway.
I'm not going to ask you if you inhaled until we get into the subject.
I did inhale. I inhaled a lot.
Okay. If there was a mayor position open in Waiawa, you'd probably be the mayor of Waiawa also, right?
Well, I have a lot of friends, and I do circulate a lot in the community. And again, of course, I went to Waiawa Elementary, Waiawa Intermediate School, Middle School, and Lelehua High School, proud alumni. Go Mules, go! Imua Lelehua. Played under Hio Yoshida. That was my football coach.
And you and I met when you were chair of the Finance Committee. That's where, in fact, our debates began on the floor, when
we
iron sharpens iron, or sometimes spears sharpen spears.
We had those discussions both within the committee when we had discussions in the committee at that time, and also on the floor. But before that, Gene, when I was the majority floor leader, we had some debates, and also when I was a assistant majority floor leader way back when in the mid-90s, before you left us, and went over to bigger and better things in East Timor and foreign service, right?
Right, Peace Corps days, you're reminding me of. Yeah, I had a hiatus from 1998 to 2007. But you served as the chair of the Finance Committee for how many years? How many years?
I was there for 6 years, from 2007 to 2012.
2012.
So I served under the, when Governor Lingo was there, and we went through the Great Recession, 2008, 2009. 1011 kind of came out in 1213. So I had the privilege of serving both on the Republican governor, Governor Lingo, and also on the Governor Abercrombie.
And as the finance chair, you probably know where some of the skeletons are buried.
We found a few of them. You know, we had to put them back, of course. You know, properly intern them, but and consult with people who buried them.
It's a great transition into our subject because we're going to talk about HB 321, which was passed in the 2015 legislature, which puts, how would you say, not legalizes, but puts marijuana dispensaries into the foray on a retail basis. So what we did on the Beer Summit, I thought you could do a few things about reviewing what essentially that piece of legislation.
Well, let me tell you first of all. You know, I have had been a supporter of medical marijuana for medical purposes. You know, back in 15 years ago, we did approve it when Ben Cayetano was governor. Joe Suki was a speaker. Calvin Steele was a finance chair. We looked at it as someone who has a debilitating, life-threatening disease, cancer, cachexia, AIDS, wasting disease, glaucoma, severe pain, that they might want to use marijuana as a form of medicine. But back then, maybe we were naive, Gene. We thought about people maybe growing some marijuana, harvesting it, and making some joints and smoking some joints to alleviate the pain and discomfort of cancer treatment or other kind of diseases. But never did we think in our wildest dreams that here in 2015 we're looking at something of a more higher grade type of marijuana with a high THC of content that never existed.
Could you give some examples of what used to be?
Yeah, let me give examples. In the 60s, 70s, 80s, when maybe some people out there inhaled, I did inhale back then, we had a THC content in marijuana, maybe 2 to 4 percentage points of THC in a marijuana. Today it's 25, 30 milligrams.
10 times.
Yes, 10 times. So clearly it's apples and oranges. It's like comparing a bottle of beer to a bottle of bourbon. You know what I mean? Both are alcohol, but the alcohol content, the potency is dramatically different. So it's not your marijuana or pot or joints that your father or grandfather smoked back there in the 60s, 70s, 80s. It's a higher, more potent form of marijuana. Of course, it would have a different kind of effects upon the human brain and the human body. So that's what we're dealing with today. But my great objection was not so much the use of medical marijuana for medicinal purposes, but the commercialization of it. Because once you commercialize it and make it into a profit-making enterprise, this is where you get investors in, you get profiteers coming in. And I think it's going to be similar to other types of form of addictive goods, like alcohol or tobacco. You know, you need to have a consistent clientele or customer base to have a sustainable.
If I can interrupt you there, Marcus, I think some of us argue that if it's medical marijuana, why not put it in the pharmacy with a grade and a shelf life and other kinds of, quote, medicinal things?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you on that. I think people who want to see that makes sense. Again, that's with the federal government, through the Federal Drug Administration. Maybe one day they'll see fit to reason to
Longs, CVS, Walgreens.
Oh, yeah. You know, except for Sudafed that's being tested right now, I think it's a commercial product being looked at right now for asthmatic cases or maybe severe epileptic seizures, which is called epidiolex, I think. Everything else is outside. That's why it's not a prescription. It's a recommendation from a physician. But this is marijuana as joints, this is marijuana as pills, this is marijuana as capsules, this is marijuana as tinctures, and of course the possibility of edible marijuana products.
You bring up an interesting question I think we didn't even have in the Beer Summit. If someone gets a marijuana card and the prescribing doctor says you are eligible for marijuana, does it give the dosage of THC? Can you be the real psychedelic kind, or it's the small one, or that's not up to the doctor, it's up to whoever's got the card, they can do it?
It's up to the person with the card. For $35.80, for $35.80, you have, well, that's the tax, I think, the service fee you have to put in there.
$35.80.
But for $35.80, you get basically a get out of jail card free. So there's about 14,000 of them circulating right now in the state of Hawaii. For $35.80, you have the ability to carry marijuana on your person up to, I think, 4 ounces. and not be prosecuted for possessing marijuana. You can also grow up to 7 plants, 7 marijuana plants, whether it's a bonsai, or you can go with a bush, or you can go with a mango tree-sized marijuana plant. You can grow 7 of them for $35.80. What a deal! And carry marijuana. It's much cheaper than getting a legal defense plan, hiring an attorney. This little card that fits in your wallet says Department of Health Medical Marijuana Program for $35.80. Allows you to grow, possess marijuana, and also go to a retail store coming your way in July of 2016.
I don't think there's going to be one in Hawaii, nor Waiwa. I don't think. Unless, do you know, in fact, where they're going to be? People are interested. How do I get a card? Where are these things?
Well, you can get a card. You can actually go online today and probably register at the Department of Health. First of all, you have to go and see a doctor, a licensed practicing physician in Hawaii, and then you establish a bona fide physician-patient relationship. And when you have a bona fide patient-physician relationship, you can then get a recommendation from your physician, who you've known for maybe more than a few minutes or a few hours.
Bona fide means?
Well, I don't know what it means.
More than 2 minutes?
Well, it's bona fide,
Not primary care physician?
Not primary care physician. That was the old law. We changed it this past year to make it easier for patients to access marijuana through a licensed certified Hawaii physician. So you have a bona fide patient-physician relationship, and the doctor's opinion is that on balance, marijuana is good for Gene's aches and pains in his lower back, or his anxiety.
All I have to do is just tell the physician, these are the pains. I go jogging and it hurts here.
Yeah. You might want to have a joint before you go and have a joint afterwards. Maybe some tea, marijuana tea in the evening.
But if it gets up to 10 times what it used to be in terms of its potency, how will I know? How will anybody who's got the card know that, hey, you're going to take the super gold, or you're going to take the smaller one?
It's trial and error, and I think anecdotal stories, or you talk to other patients who are using medical marijuana, you learn from them. But it's certainly not like a bare aspirin or a Tylenol when you know it's 50 milligrams or 100 milligrams. You will probably not know the exact potency in the marijuana itself, the plant itself, the buds itself. You may have some idea of the tinctures, the capsules, the pills, the extracts, those other types of products. But even that, there's no clear science or lab analysis on the amount of the THC, or even the potency of the type of THC in each of the products.
If we were sitting in Colorado,
yes,
where 2 or 3 years ago this came down the line, would we still be saying the same thing, that we're not really sure how to calibrate?
Yes. In fact, Colorado is uncertain on what's being sold in their products out there.
You visited, right? You went to the...
I went twice to Colorado. One on my own, for my own research prior to the 2015 legislature. I attended a conference, 3-day conference, to learn more about the regulatory side, the licensing, the manufacturing, the monitoring, the whole 9 yards of the industry. And I also wanted to learn about the law enforcement aspect of it, both on the federal, state, county level, and also I wanted to find out more about the trends they were seeing, the license regulation, the monetary part about the marijuana industry. And coming back, that's why I was so adamant about timeout. Hawaii, we need to take a timeout. Let's let Colorado run its experiment from medical marijuana to now recreational. Let's Washington State do the same thing. Let Oregon experiment, Alaska experiment, these other 22 other states experiment.
And then we learn from them.
And then we learn from their mistakes. And there are a lot of mistakes out there, And there are some Coloradans right now would say that had they known the damaging effect upon their citizens, especially young people, they would never have approved recreational marijuana.
We just had an advertiser article that said that some kids were taken to the emergency room because these rolled Fruit Loops had some THC in it, and they were freaking out, and they took to them. Is that kind of things like that for the young kids?
That's predictable and foreseeable, and that's what you're going to see here in Hawaii, unfortunately. If we look at the states that have legalized medicinal marijuana, every single state has had an increase in exposure of marijuana to young people. In fact, there was a study done in Colorado, I think 2 years ago, that 70% of the marijuana being smoked or used by high school students, 70%, Gene, came from people who purchased their marijuana to a medical marijuana dispensary in Colorado. It was diverted through the adults who could purchase it to the youth. And 70% of the high school students who are using marijuana got it through an adult who purchased it through a medical marijuana dispensary.
I was going to ask, how do we keep medical marijuana medical? It sounds like once it gets medicinal, it becomes recreational.
Yeah, I think the writing is on the wall, and I've been telling people for a while now that for the last 15 years, when we started medical marijuana back in when Cayetano was there, through Lingo's administration, through Abercrombie's administration, we have basically had a form of de facto legalization.
How do you mean?
De facto legalization is that if you possess a medical marijuana card and pay $35.80, you get this white card, Department of Health, medical marijuana certificate from Marcus Oshiro, for $35.80 a year. That's my get out of jail card. If I show this to a police officer and have this card, they can't, I'm legally entitled to possess marijuana as a defense. You can't arrest me.
On an airplane also?
Not on an airplane.
TSA?
Not TSA, not airplane,
okay.
not federal property. But
Okay.
But at home in Wahiawa, certainly yes. In my car, certainly yes. Okay? And I can also grow 7 marijuana plants. So technically, just by operation of law, we have a de facto legalization process today. For $35.80, you get a card, you can grow 7 marijuana plants, either a bonsai, a little bush, or the size of a mango tree. There's no limitation of the size of the marijuana plants.
Do you have to consume them, or can you, quote, sell them?
You can't sell marijuana. That's illegal. That's a federal and state crime. But I can grow it for my own personal use. Or if I can't under current law, and I have a good friend like you, and I know you have a green thumb, Gene, you can go to grow the marijuana for me. You'll be my caretaker. And as my caretaker, you can grow 7 plants, and give me.
Do I have to have a license to do that?
You have a special license given to you, declaring you as my caretaker. I get the license to use it, but you have the caretaker license to grow it for me, and get.
I mean, as you said, that was the original intent. Those who are in pain, those who can't actually grow, they can't pot it.
And again,
that
Gene, the
works.
idea was really live and let live. No big money was involved. We're not talking about 1.2 million to open up a medical marijuana.
Now let's talk about
facility.
how one gets into the marijuana raising, distributing, and licensing and regulation. Talk us.
Initially, there are going to be 8 licenses. 8 licenses. Two on Maui, 3 on Oahu. I think one on, 2 on Hawaii Island, 2 on Maui, 3 on Oahu, 1 on Kauai. To apply, you need to be a local resident, have at least 5 years of residency. You need to show you have assets of about $1.2 million, assets, liquidable assets in an account somewhere.
So this is not a mom and pop. This is a bit of deep pockets.
Wealthy mom and pop. That's why you
Well,
see you see an assortment of people coming out. You see some ranchers coming out today. You see some farmers coming out today. You see some kimchi manufacturers coming out today. You have a internet game company coming on the scene today. And you have a former mayor coming out and supporting it. Former attorney general coming out on it. A whole slew of accountants, attorneys, looking to see if this can be a new industry for Hawaii. And I think several months ago they issued a report saying that some of these folks getting involved thinks that medical marijuana can be a $65 million industry
Per year
in Hawaii.
with the tax.
Well, just the business itself, on the number of sales that can be derived from the expanding market, which may grow in the next 2 to 3 years from currently 14,000 to maybe 28 or 32,000 in the next 2 or 3 years.
So we expect the number of medical cards to double because people are getting sicker or more painful.
Well, I think people are going to learn more about it, and I think they're going to be promoted to maybe try it. And I think it's in the interest of the manufacturers, growers, retailers to sell as much as you want to, right? So like any other product you want to sell, you want sales. I think marijuana, medical marijuana will follow the same path. And if we follow the history of Colorado, or if we follow the history of Idaho, if we follow the history of New Mexico, or if we follow the history, I think, of Oregon, we should see a growth pattern like this, doubling, tripling of the number of cardholders in 2-3 years.
It happened exactly like that in the other state?
Well, I think I think actually in Colorado it was a lot more expansive. I think it was.
I mean, more than double.
Oh yeah, more than double. On their first year.
This is just the medical one.
This is medical marijuana. Yeah, this just expands dramatically over several years. So, can you imagine today? For 10 years, we have about 13,000 or 14,000, but that's going to double and triple in the next 2 or 3 years. And it, and it kind of makes sense, right, with the economic model, right, the free market model, right. You want to have enough sales to consume your production. And in Hawaii, they're telling me you're going to have 4 or 5 crops a year of marijuana. Maybe every 60 to 70 days, you get a new crop of marijuana. Okay, so 4 or 5 crops a year. You're going to get maybe 2.5, 3 pounds of marijuana per plant. You're going to have 3,000 plants in each of the grow facilities. So one analysis that was done was to project when would you get the reimbursement of your investment, your return of investment, ROI. It may be as little as 3 to 4 years. If you throw in, $3.5, $5.2 million, your return on investment may be less than 3 to 5 years, let's say, return on investment. Because of the amount of marijuana that can be produced and the marijuana that can be sold. One of the key components of the marijuana industry is whether or not the Department of Health are going to allow for the manufacture and sale of edible marijuana products. Edible marijuana products, candies, gummy bears, sodas, mixes. These are not smoking type. They're not not capsules or lozenges. These are edible products: brownies, cookies, gummy bears.
Should it become a bakery at the same time?
Kind of like confectionery. Like a chocolate company. With marijuana infused products there. When I went to this one seminar here in Honolulu, right after the session. It was a 1-day seminar at Pacific Beach. The gentleman from Florida who consult with marijuana businesses in Colorado and other states, Oregon, California, was saying that the business will want to have at least 40% of their sales, will depend upon 40% of their sales of edibles.
It's almost half.
A little less than 40% to make it financially viable. You would have to sell that much edibles, because not everyone smokes it, right? People don't want to smoke, marijuana. Not everyone wants to smoke a joint, right? Because that's, burning.
Smoking.
That's right, exactly. Burning plant material, inhaling it, all the kind of carcinogenic effects, the compounds that heat up and are created, the carbon monoxide, the gases.
So you're projecting 40% of pain relief will be from edibles.
Well, I think that's what the marketeers and the guys who are consulting on the business model say, that in order to be a successful, viable medical marijuana dispensary, you need to go and be able to sell edible marijuana.
But
and 40% of your sales in other states, Colorado and other states where you have New Mexico, Arizona, 40% of their sales are edible marijuana products, not smoking, no. Not capsules, not pills, not tinctures, not lozenges. 40% are edibles.
Wow, that's a lot.
That is a lot. So, it's up to the Department of Health right now, under the current law, whether or not they're going to allow other products as determined by the Department of Health to allow for the manufacture sale of edible marijuana. I hope not, at least right now, until we get an idea of how we're going to regulate and monitor this.
There's no price regulation, correct?
There is no price regulation. So what's going to happen, according to the RAND Institute and studies that they have done, is that when you legalize marijuana in a medical sense or recreational sense, the production costs drop dramatically. What may have cost $10 a pound to produce will go down to pennies a pound to produce.
Economies of scale, efficiency.
Economies of scale, it's legal, out in the open, payroll, the whole 9 yards. Because it's not underground in a cave, hidden away as a criminal enterprise. It's in the open sunlight at Kapolei on a nice, 2-acre, farm out there in a greenhouse with lights and parking lots and everything like that. It's open. So all those costs that are incurred in a criminal enterprise go away. So if it's $10 a pound to produce as a criminal type of product, you go and put it into a legal framework, it drops dramatically, dollars to pennies.
So when I was in the finance committee, I asked what was the street value of marijuana. This is about a year ago. They said $20 per gram. You're saying that once the
40,
dispensaries start growing,
Yeah.
the black market will disappear then?
No.
Because given the numbers you just said.
The black market will still be able to undercut the legal market because of certain overhead, licensing, disclosure kind of elements. And I think that's where the rub comes in. People think that the black market is going to disappear. It has never disappeared. The black market or cartel or the underground or illegal influence, the criminal element has not disappeared in Colorado. It's morphed into some other kinds of criminal activities. Heroin, black tar heroin, other types of activities there. But it's still there. And it's always going to be there, counterbalancing the legal availability. And then from the enforcement side, Gene, this is when law enforcement is really going to have a hard time distinguishing between legal medical marijuana and illegal marijuana. They look the same. They smell the same. And that's going to be very difficult.
That is as a surprise to me as it is a surprise if we've got 1 minute left on this otherwise fascinating topic. How would you tie a ribbon around everything that you said so the people out there can expect by January 2016 these are going to be opening in a...
No. In January, the rules and regulations are going to come out mid-January on who can apply for it. By April 15, 2016.
Okay, that's it.
April 15, 2016, the governor, the Department of Health are going to notify us who got the licenses, the exclusive licenses. Be prepared. Get your community ready. Get your young people ready. And the key is delay. Keep them away from marijuana. Keep them away from drugs. If they can get out of high school, they have a better chance of never being affected or addicted to this very, very potent form of marijuana.
I think we've got to follow the lessons learned from other places, not to reinvent the wheel on something that's pretty new in America. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Marcus, thank you so much for not only the Beer Summit today, you were so fluid at all the things that we need to know. This is Representative Gene Ward. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again next time. Aloha.